I just wanted to talk a little bit about breathing and specifically Ujjayi breathing, which is the type of breathing that we use in Ashtanga. But first, I wanted to start with my favorite fact about breathing, which actually is one of my favorite facts just in general. I learned this in a Vipassana retreat, and we're talking about how our body has voluntary and involuntary movements and systems. And so, for example, voluntary, I can, if I want to lift my arm, I can decide I'm going to lift my arm. Um, right? Or if I decide I'm going to kick my leg, I can do that. And so, right, a lot of the movement and the way that we're placing our bodies in and out of asanas and vinyasas in the practice, right, that's all voluntary. We can do all of this. Our body also has so many involuntary systems that um, are constantly working right behind the scenes without us thinking about it or without us having to do it, right? Such as our heart beating and our blood flowing and our lymphatic system and our digestion and all of these things that just always are happening without us thinking about it, without us trying to keep us alive. And then there's the breath. So the breath is the one thing um, that we need to keep us alive that is involuntary. So most of our day, right, we're not thinking about our breathing, but we continue to breathe anyway because we need to breathe to stay alive. And so in that way, it's an involuntary system. It's constantly doing that without our knowledge. When we're sleeping, right, we're still breathing. When we're anxious, when we're just distracted, which I think most of us are most of the day, we continue to breathe. But we also can sit and I can say, okay, I'm going to inhale for 5 seconds now. And now I'm going to exhale for 5 seconds. I can even inhale and hold that inhale in. And then exhale. And so when we think about it, we have total control over our breath, and then it becomes a voluntary thing. And so, because this is the one thing, again, that sustains us, that is both involuntary and voluntary, people say that this is why it can be used as a bridge between our conscious mind and our unconscious or our subconscious mind. And I just think that is the coolest thing ever. We'll talk more about pranayama in future videos, but just that, knowing that we can use this to really understand ourselves and to tap into that unconscious mind, to understand the unconscious patterns that we have. um, just so cool. And um, yeah, so I kind of just want us to all do just a really quick breathing exercise together. Again, we'll kind of talk more about this stuff when we talk more about pranayama, but just as a really basic breathing technique. So we're going to do what I just did. So we're going to all inhale together and we're just going to use 5 seconds. So let's take a deep inhale together. So exhale fully first and then inhale for 5. And exhale for 5. Again, inhale. Exhale. One more time. Inhale. And exhale. Good. And now we're going to do that but with the kumakas or the holds. So we're going to, again, just using 5. We're going to inhale. We're going to hold. We're going to exhale. And then we're going to hold it out. And I just want you to notice how each one of those 4 feels. Exhale fully. Inhale for 5. Hold that inhale in for 5. Exhale. And hold that out for 5. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. And hold. Good. And you can inhale and just return back to your regular breathing. So overall, I hope that you get a sense that you just feel a little bit more calm, a little more focused. Um, and then I just think it's interesting too to see how it feels receiving um, and giving, and if any of them feel like more difficult than the other pieces or the holds. Just interesting, another like tool for self-awareness, self-observation. Um, okay, so that's just some kind of like basic breath work. And again, in the practice, right, the first thing we really focus on is the placement of our physical body. So these voluntary movements of placing the body, moving the arms, the legs, right, the shoulders, all of that. And then I think the next natural thing then is really to get control over the breath. So it's like, okay, so now I'm rising, so I'm inhaling, and you start to really pair that. Um, and I think that's really where like the yoga starts to feel great. So um, yeah, just some basic breathing. So now in Ashtanga specifically, we talked about this in the first class, but we use Ujjayi breathing. And so again, I always say like breathe with sound. And so again, like when we're breathing, we're breathing through our nose for both the inhale and the exhale. And it's like a throat breathing. So it's kind of like I think of it as like up here in the throat. So again, breathing with sound. So you're not breathing like through like the front of the nose. It's like it's back further. And that's where you get like the sound from. Um, and in Ashtanga, we don't listen to music while we practice because we're supposed to be listening to the sound of our breath, which is meant to sound like the sounds of the ocean. And it's very calming and relaxing. And I think that's also a way to hold you like accountable almost to like make sure that you're breathing is you got to be listening to the sound and it should be steady and calming. And so I just wanted to go over a quick exercise with Ujjayi breathing. My teacher Liza had us do this a bunch in San Diego, and so I'm going to show you something, and um, this is kind of just to get you to understand the breath that we're using. So this is more of like a full Ujjayi breathing. So it's just nice to practice. She would have us kind of start our practice with this for some days, just to again get us to understand more about what we're doing. So again, the exercise I'm going to do, I'll show you and then we can do it together. But basically, this is getting us to like a full Ujjayi breath. But in the actual practice, we're using like just a percentage of that. But it's a nice way to help you to understand what we're really going for. So she has us stand up and you like crouch down. And so what this is going to be, so I'm going to exhale fully and I'm going to be holding that exhale out. While I'm holding it out, I'm going to take like a really deep, like kind of Uddiyana Bandha again. So it's like that, it's like you're bringing your stomach in and up. So you want to kind of like get like a suction in your stomach. And this is while you're holding your exhale out. And then you just sit there. And again, because the breath also is voluntary when it needs to be, eventually an inhale is just going to like come through your body. And because you're suctioning and having that lock in there, it comes up through the throat. And it kind of sometimes makes a really funny noise when the inhale hits. But that's the place that we're supposed to be breathing from. So again, we're going to exhale all the breath out, like push all the exhale even more than it feels like there is. And then while holding that exhale out, you're going to like draw in and up your belly to get that lock in there. And then you just sit there and wait. And eventually the inhale is just going to come through on its own. Okay. So take a big breath. Exhale fully and push it out even more than it feels like you need to. Okay, so we'll do that one more time, but let me explain again. You kind of crouch down, take a big inhale, but then you exhale fully, push out the exhale even more than it feels like you need to, push all the air out. While you're holding the exhale out, you suction up and in your belly. So you kind of want to have like a concave belly. And then you just simply hold that there. You hold that exhale out with that lock in place and you just wait. And eventually that inhale is going to come in and you kind of heard that weird noise, right? And so that's like full Ujjayi breathing or close to full Ujjayi breathing. I don't want to claim that I can fully Ujjayi breathe. I don't know. But that's where it is. And like you'll feel it too, where you should be breathing from. So it's just a nice exercise to get you into it. So let's do it one more time together. Okay. Inhale. Exhale fully. Push out the inhale. Holding it, suck in and up your belly. So if you just kind of want to play around with that, and again, it just kind of shows you where the breath should be. And again, in the practice, we're not fully Ujjayi breathing every time. It's like a 10% or just like a percentage of that. But it just gives you that idea of where you should be breathing and where you should be feeling the breath and the sound. But yeah, happy practicing.